work on R squared, and that's really where we want to go next in our second take, which really sort of answers that basic fundamental question. Do buybacks deliver shareholder value? Does it destroy shareholder value? Greg Milano, the CEO of Fortuna Advisors, which recently put out its annual buyback report called Ranking really the top performing S&P 500 share repurchase programs and detailing how managements, well, did they create or destroy value by buying back that stock? Greg, it feels like a complicated question. Is there a simple answer to this?
Yeah, there is. I mean, we developed a measure called Buyback ROI a little over 10 years ago. And in this most recent report that we just released this week, we showed that companies are now delivering very strong buyback ROI, and at least the majority of companies. And they tend to be timing them much better than they used to. Still not as well as we would like, but they tend to be buying back more shares, when the share price dips a bit, and less when the peaks are happening. And that tends to help them retire either more shares for the same money or the same shares for less money, which is a good thing for the remaining shareholders and for the health of the company.
Greg, can you talk to us a little bit about how you define buyback ROI in your methodology? And then further, if you're seeing any differences in ROI at the sector level or industry level within the broader market?
Sure. So buyback ROI is it's calculated. If I buy back a share today for, say, $20, and then a year from now that share is worth $25, well, that's like a 25% return. It's just like I bought another company and it went up in value by 25%. And the significance of it is that, by looking at a return the same way we would look at other uses of capital, like capital expenditures and and acquisitions, we get something that we can really use for comparative purposes. So a company can use this in their capital allocation sort of decision making to try and direct capital to buybacks when it really is better than other alternatives that they have.
So we're showing on the board here some of the sectors, I guess, that have underperformed, like utilities and energy. Technology, industrials, I think, have done a little bit better. Is that true, Greg?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, technology, almost all the time has produced the best buyback ROI. They tend to have the best share price performance, so their ability to capture good returns is the best. And also they tend to have pretty good timing. Some of the industries are not as good at timing, but in tech, they tend to be pretty good at it. The number one company on our ranking this year was a company that hasn't even been in our ranking before. AMD really hasn't been big on buybacks. And, last year their share price dipped in the early part of the year while the general market went up. I think in May they were down about 20% when the market was up 10%, and they really kicked in buybacks at that point. By the end of the year, deploying about $2 billion into buybacks, and by the end of the year their share price was almost double that low. So they really did it with very good timing, and they wound up being the very top of our list of buyback ROI companies.
So then, Greg, as you described, is it more about sort of an individual company and the timing? It's interesting, we're coming off of a conversation with Jill Carey Hall. She talks about the R squared, right? The relationship between performance versus buybacks, and she describes it as a myth that really in the long term you're not getting a lot of that big performance just because there is a buyback. So then how do you sort of see what AMD, for example, does differently? Was that just good timing?
Yeah, it was good timing, and then that's a good thing, right? It's no different from an investor who bought the stock in May that would have been happy at the end of the year that they did. They had a share price that was basically flat when the market was meaningfully up, and they timed their buybacks well, and they ended the year strong. So just like an investor, buying when they did was a good thing. But I think in terms of whether buybacks are good, we need to think about what the purpose of them is. The general purpose of buybacks is to reallocate capital mostly away from companies that are more mature and don't need, can't really productively reinvest all their capital, back into their business, in a way that's good for the shareholders. And they can distribute that capital to investors who can then take it and reinvest it in other companies that are up and coming and don't have the resources. And that recycling of capital from the mature to the up and coming resources is a really important reason, for job creation, because those up and coming companies are the ones that create the majority of the jobs. And, if they can't get access to capital, then they're going to be stifled and they're not going to grow. So, it's a really important process. we would just like companies to not only decide, when it's good to do buybacks in general, like, a company that doesn't have use of all the capital, but also to try to time them well so they can retire more shares in the process. Then what they're doing is really much better for the remaining shareholders.
All right, Greg, a wealth of knowledge there. Really appreciate you taking time to be with us, contributing to today's discussion. Greg Milano there, the CEO and founder of Fortuna Advisors. Coming up, we'll continue the conversation. Our triple take today, the third take, going to focus on regulation. The Biden administration proposing new rules to discourage corporate buybacks. Ben Silverman, Director of Research over at Verity Data, he's going to be joining us in just a moment. This is Bloomberg.
I think that it's hard to put your head around any narrative. Let's just be honest. We've had sort of a shift in, are we in some sort of stagflation fears moment? People were talking about that all day yesterday.
Ever wonder what everyone's doing on their phones? They're banking with Bank of America.
His girlfriend just caught the bouquet, so he's checking in on that ring fund. Oh, that photographer? He's looking for something a little more